Hello, everyone. Welcome to another inspiring session of the Youth Engagement Forum. And at Youth Aware, we really want to highlight people who are community leaders and who inspire us, people who are really making a positive impact and helping to make others' lives better. And today I'm honored and proud to be speaking with Dr. Thomas Froehlich and Mrs. Susan Froehlich from Dallas, Texas. And Dr. Thomas Froehlich is an oncologist and hematologist at Southwestern Medical Center in Dallas, Texas. And it is my absolute privilege to have him and Mrs. Susan Froehlich here. And they volunteered in the vaccine trial for the Moderna COVID-19 vaccine earlier this year. I was listening to their amazing interview on CNN with Anderson Cooper, where they described their experience. And I felt so proud to have such wonderful role models in the community for our youth. Thank you so much, Dr. Froehlich and Mrs. Froehlich, for joining us today.
Well, thank you for having us.
Thank you so much. And at Youth Aware, we really want to recognize our heroes during this pandemic. And Dr. and Mrs. Froehlich and everyone who took part in the vaccine trials, you are all our heroes.
Oh, thank you.
Well, thank you. That's a real compliment. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much. So please tell us a little bit about yourselves.
Well, I was your age when I first met Tom. I was in 8th grade. And he was my older brother's good friend in high school. And I was just the kind of tag along tomboy that would go and do whatever they were doing. And then we started dating, I think, when you were a senior in high school, maybe?
I think a junior.
Junior?
Yeah.
Your junior prom,
Yeah.
I think.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So we've been married 51 years now. We've got 2 kids and 6 grandkids.
Wow. So the Moderna vaccine is an mRNA vaccine. And Dr. Froehlich, can you please tell us more about how this new type of vaccine works?
Well, this is a completely new technology. And what's really interesting about this is that this vaccine and the Pfizer vaccine is the same technology, carry no risk of giving you an infection. Basically, what the mRNA is the messenger RNA that tells the body to create the spike protein on the viral surface. So, DNA is copied to RNA, and then RNA tells the cells to make a protein. And so the mRNA tells some of our cells to make the spike protein, which is a foreign protein. And then our immune system sees that foreign protein and starts making antibodies to attack that protein and destroy it without ever having to see, our bodies ever having to see the whole virus. Vaccines in the past were typically either live attenuated viruses that couldn't make you sick or weren't likely to make you sick, or they were killed viruses that contained the viral proteins. But this vaccine actually induces your cells to make the spike protein, and then your immune system learns to respond to that spike protein. And that spike protein is what your body attacks when you actually get the virus. And it really is likely to prevent you from getting ill from the virus. What's not known is whether or not it will prevent you from actually acquiring the virus at a low level, which might allow you to transmit it to other people. So that's not known yet.
But Dr. Fauci was saying on CNN the other night that he believes that there's strong evidence to indicate that you would not be a carrier if you had gotten the vaccine.
Right.
We just don't know that for sure yet.
Right.
Okay, thank you so much. So, Mrs. Froehlich, when you saw the possibility of participating in the vaccine trial, were you anxious or was it a go from the very beginning? And how did your family react to it?
Well, it was definitely a go from the very beginning. Tom has been involved in trials since he was in medical school. He did all kinds of trials during medical school. So we understood the importance of having volunteers if you're, whether it's you're looking for cancer cures or what medication is going to have fewer side effects. We need volunteers to try it to find that out. So we were absolutely ready to do the trial if given the opportunity here in Dallas. And fortunately, here in Dallas, it was one of the sites where we could be volunteers. And my family were proud of me and proud of Tom that we would be willing to do that. And what I hope is that when we're long gone off this earth, that our grandchildren and their children and grandchildren will say, well, you know, we lived during the 2019 COVID or 2020 COVID pandemic, and our parents actually helped to bring that vaccine to the world.
Yes, and like I said before, you're all our heroes for doing this, and thank you so much. So, Mrs. Froehlich, what were your experiences like taking part in the vaccine trial? How did you feel after you received the dose? And then how long after did you get the second one? So what were some of the side effects? And did you ever think, oh my God, what did I get myself into?
So we went on August 21st and got our first shot. And I had a little bit of a sore arm where the injection was, but that way it was, you know, for 24 hours it was sore. But I thought, well, they put a needle into my muscle. That doesn't mean I got the vaccine. My muscle's just sore. And then 4 weeks later, we went back to get the second injection. And at that time, about 12 hours after we got the injection, it was 2:30 in the morning, and I woke up and I had a bad headache, and it started with a bad headache and a bad stomach ache. You know, sometimes when you get sick and you think, oh, if I could just throw up, I'd feel better. Well, that's how I felt, but I never did throw up. And then since it was 2:30 in the morning, I couldn't find any Aleve, naproxen to take. So for about 4 hours, I suffered with it, and I had my jaw hurt, my eyes hurt, my neck hurt, my back hurt, my bones hurt, my joint, everything other than I think the hair follicles on my body were hurting. But once he woke up, I told him what I was experiencing, and he went and got some Aleve. I took 2 Aleve. And within 45 minutes, I was starting to feel better. And so I had some symptoms for about 24 hours before they all disappeared. But there wasn't much to it. It was over and done with after that first 24 hours.
So Dr. Froehlich, after you participated in the vaccine trial, were you kept in the loop as far as the scientific process and the timeline?
Well, the local principal investigator for the trial, you know, the way clinical trials run, there's a trial principal investigator, and then each site where the trial is done has a principal investigator. And so since he knew that I was an oncologist and did clinical cancer research, he talked to me about it. So he explained that what they were thinking about at Moderna. This was the day we got our second injection. And what he said was, they've been talking about the fact that they will, when the vaccine gets approved, they think they'll probably unblind the trial and give all of the participants who got the placebo the actual vaccine, but that doing that had to be approved by the FDA, which is really, from an ethical standpoint, is really only the only ethical thing they can do. I mean, they really do need to offer it. And there's a lot more data. I mean, this trial goes on for 2 years, so we committed to be followed for 2 years for this trial. So I think that what they'll do is, once it gets approved, they will offer the 15,000 people who got the placebo in the trial, they'll offer them the actual vaccine.
Yes, thank you. This gives us great insight into really how does this trial work and what were the different parts that were involved. So Mrs. Froehlich,
Can I add one other thing? But because it was a double-blind study, the PI did not know who got the placebo and who got the vaccination. No one knew.
And we didn't know at that point. We didn't actually know until we took part in the Mount Sinai trial a month or 6 weeks later and sent them our blood. And then they actually sent us the results of our blood assays.
so the next question I was going to ask actually follows on to that. So Mrs. Froehlich, were you tested for antibodies, and do you know if you are immune?
Okay, so I have to back up just a little bit. I have a 93-year-old mother who's bedridden and in a residential home. And so since COVID, I've not been able to go and visit her. But recently, because she's on hospice, they gave me a special permission that I could visit her twice a week for no longer than 20 minutes each time. I had to wear a mask. I had to wear gloves. I couldn't get close to her. I couldn't touch her, but I could at least visit her after not having been able to do that for 6 months. And so in order to do that, every 2 weeks, I would have to go and get a negative COVID test where they put the swab up your nasal passage, and it feels like it's going into your brain. It goes up so high. So once we found out that I had indeed gotten the real vaccine, I called my internist at UT Southwestern and told her, and I said, could you write me a letter? I'll send you a copy of my antibody test. And she said, well, I want you to have an antibody test done here, but go ahead and send that to me. So I went and had an antibody test at the school, and it came back negative. I was so disappointed. I was so depressed. Tom came home from work that day, and I met him in the garage, and I said, Tom, my antibody test came back negative. I didn't get the vaccine. And then he said, no. The type of vaccine we got, you can't use the traditional antibody test. So he said the titer test, which they did up in New York on our blood, he said that's the accurate test. And yes, you do have antibodies.
Yeah, the antibody that is induced by the Moderna vaccine, and same is probably true for the Pfizer vaccine, is not detected by the clinical tests that hospital labs can run. It detects the naturally occurring antibodies when you get a natural infection, but it doesn't detect this antibody made by the vaccine.
So I was really relieved when he got home, because I was so hopeful. So anyway, I presented those test results along with a letter from the doctor to the facility, and they said that now I can still come and see my mom. I still obviously wear a mask and gloves, and I don't get close to touch her, but I no longer have to have those COVID tests every 2 weeks, which is really nice. And I get to visit my mom.
Wow, that's great. So Dr. Froehlich, once the vaccine becomes available, do you plan to receive it again?
Oh yeah, I definitely plan to receive it because I haven't gotten it. I got the placebo.
Which is made up of what?
Usually
Saline.
it's just saline, salt water, because I had absolutely no reaction. I mean, I didn't even have any local pain when they gave me the injection. I had absolutely nothing. So I was pretty certain that I had gotten the placebo, and the Mount Sinai antibody test confirmed that.
So Mrs. Froehlich, what would be your advice to people on receiving the vaccine once it becomes widely available? And what would be your advice for people who are hesitating and actually refusing to take the vaccine?
Those are great questions. I would tell the people that are going to get the vaccine to be sure and have some Aleve on hand. And when they start feeling bad, take 2 440 milligrams.
Yeah.
Because it made a huge difference. And the other thing is, I would say for the people who are nervous about it, they're going to fall right into line when they see that their next door neighbor and that their family friends can go to the grocery store and not have to worry about it. They can go to restaurants, they can go to dinner, they can see their friends and their family, they can hug their kids. They're gonna line up. But what I would say is be those first people to get in line, because it's a limited number of doses that we have. And when they say that we have 2 million doses, that's only enough for 1 million people because everybody has to get 2 shots. So don't wait, don't hesitate, go and get it, and then we can get our lives back, we can get our economy back, everything's going to improve, and we will be so much happier as a result. You know, I didn't realize how the stress was affecting me until I found out that I actually had the vaccine, and it's like a weight has been lifted off my shoulders. I don't get scared about going out. I still wear my mask and gloves as an example and a model to everybody else, but I really don't need to.
Yes, and you're all trailblazers, just being the first people to receive the vaccine, and to just be doing this for everyone else, and just inspiring us to all receive the vaccine, and to help heal our communities.
Yeah. Well, I mean, our goal is to try to disseminate truthful information about this. I mean, what Susan went through was unpleasant for a few hours, but compared to the benefit, it was a minor price to pay for the benefit of now being protected against serious illness. And the efficacy of the vaccine, of both the Pfizer and the Moderna vaccine, is just astounding. I mean, nearly 95% protection from severe COVID, or from the COVID and from getting the virus. And in the treatment arm, the arm that got the vaccine, they've had only a handful of cases, and they've all been very mild cases. And nobody's been hospitalized or put on a ventilator who got the vaccine. Whereas there's been, in the placebo group, well over 100 severe cases of COVID after they got the placebo.
So Dr. Froehlich, thank you so much. This is really inspiring to hear about your experience taking part in the trial. So Dr. Froehlich, what advice would you give to the youth around the world, the future scientists, leaders, and researchers and citizens of our world?
Well, I would say for the young people in the world, the future of the world is depending on you all. I mean, our present generation has made kind of a mess of things, to be honest. And it really depends on motivated, engaged individuals who pursue their dreams, and when they have an idea, pursue that idea. And if you're going to be a scientist, you've got to learn the fundamentals of the science you're going to do, and then you've got to have ideas, and then figure out, how do I design studies that can help me prove whether this is true or is not true. Because not every idea that we have, biology doesn't always work like we presume it does.
And this vaccine and all the amazing work that the scientists and healthcare workers have done during this pandemic has just really shown us the power of science and the impact that it can have.
Yeah. Well, and I guess the thing that's hard at your age to understand is that, this technology, I read an article in our local newspaper this morning, 2 scientists have been working on this mRNA technology since the 90s. And they almost couldn't get any funding early on. So you've got to really be persistent. If you believe in something, you've got to be persistent. And in science, you've also got to figure out, how do I get my research paid for? And that's a challenge. I mean, these 2 people have worked on a messenger RNA vaccine since the mid-90s. That's 25 years they've been working on this. And now we finally have 2 vaccines based on this technology, which are going to, I think, be game-changing as far as this virus goes.
Yes, thank you so much, Dr. Froehlich. This is really inspiring. So, Mrs. Froehlich, would you like to say anything for our young readers at Youth Aware?
Just to encourage them to stay engaged with whatever it is that they want to pursue. And my mother told me when I was in 9th grade, and I've tried to live my life that way, and that is, she sat me down one time because I was having trouble with one of my teachers, and she said, Susan, there are things in this world that you're going to have to do. You don't have a choice. What you do have a choice is to either do it and be happy or do it and be miserable. And I thought to myself, well, heck, if I'm going to have to do it, I want to be happy. And so I've tried to put that information into my entire life. I don't want to be a victim. I want to be a person who can learn from experience and who will enjoy adventure.
Yes, thank you so much. This is really great advice for our readers at Youth Aware. And Dr. Froehlich and Mrs. Froehlich, I feel that you are all our true heroes. And for all the people who have participated in this trial for a vaccine, we really salute you. And your contribution to the scientific process is awe-inspiring, because you did this for the greater good so that the rest of us could have an expedited vaccine. Thank you so much.